WWE Elimination Chamber over the weekend. What a show it was. You watched it live.
I did.
For those of you who follow us on Twitter, you maybe interacted with Andy doing live tweets for the show.
Yeah.
Was your day totally screwed up after that? How did that work?
Yeah, a little. So I slept for 3 hours before, and then woke up, watched it, and then went back to bed, basically. So it was I got 8 hours of sleep. It was just broken up, so it kind of worked out.
That would explain why I texted you
at
when I woke
7:30,
up.
8 o'clock, yeah.
And you didn't text me back for a long time.
I was back out, but. I got up and watched it. My wife made sure to make me tell everybody that she also got up, watched it, stayed awake the entire time. I was very proud of her. But yeah, it was different, and it made me feel more sympathetic to our European friends who have to do this every single time. So I'm glad you guys have to do it every time and we don't, because it would be a chore to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And honestly, there are some years where if there was an Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in Australia, ain't no way I was getting up at 4 o'clock to watch it, because I knew it was not going to be worth watching.
Sure. Whether
it was storyline reasons or in-ring reasons, I was like, it's not worth it. Now pay-per-views are worth it, so I'm very excited about it.
That's awesome. Shout out to our friends outside of the United States, and shout out to Katie. I'm very proud of Katie. So glad that she was able to stay up, because, well, we won't get into that anyway. All right. Speaking of Katie's favorite wrestler, see, this is why she stayed up to watch it. Becky Lynch wins the Women's Elimination Chamber in her first crack at it. You predicted it. Jared predicted it, which, by the way, shout out to Jared Justice, who was all set to record tonight, and the power went out at his house, ladies and gentlemen. So shout out to Jared. He may be able to pop on here in a little bit. We'll see how that goes, but shout out to Jared. That's why he's not on the show tonight. But Jared's pick, your pick, Becky Lynch winning the Elimination Chamber. A really good match. Honestly, hot start to the show. Yeah,
really hot start to the show. It's one of the weird years where I preferred the Women's Rumble to the Men's Rumble.
Yes.
And I think I preferred the Women's Chamber to the Men's Chamber this year.
I definitely did.
It was awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was a great way to kick off the night. And it had one of the most out-of-nowhere finishes to a chamber match I can remember, but in the best way possible.
Yes, I love it.
It all happened so perfectly and so well. But the thing that stuck out to me the most, or the person that stuck out to me the most, and I tweeted this out, is Tiffany Stratton is going to be an absolute star. An absolute star.
Fantastic showing for Tiffany Stratton. She was incredible in this match. Of course, Tiffany Stratton is a significant other of the great Carell Ludwig Kaiser, the best nickname in wrestling, but regardless, I digress. Tiffany Stratton, man, what a showing. You said it. She's going to be a star. Just some of the things that she was able to pull off in that match for her first pay-per-view match. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the fans were behind her before she even got in. They started the We Want Tiffy chants before she even got in, and then she got in and just absolutely killed it. To the point where when Liv Morgan is the one that eliminates her and Liv gets booed for it, Tiffany's going to be a big deal. So I expect big things for her. Again, the women's match just absolutely knocked it out of the park, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Let's not dive too far into the rabbit hole, but I do want to ask you, Tiffany Stratton's character reminds me a whole lot of an updated version of the Alexa Bliss goddess character.
Yeah, to an extent.
In a way.
Yeah.
In a way. So do you feel like, because Alexa, let's be honest, I'm biased.
Very.
I'm biased, but if you look at Alexa's career, Tiffany did way more in NXT than Alexa did. Alexa never had a takeover match.
Right.
But she came up during the 2016 brand split when Shane McMahon was in charge of SmackDown, immediately competed in her first pay-per-view and won the championship from Becky Lynch.
Yeah.
And then from 2016 to, I would say, 2019, somewhere in 2019, she had an incredible run.
Yeah.
A 5-time champion. She won the title on both brands, won the first Women's Elimination Chamber match, won Money in the Bank, all the things. She was on an incredible tear. Do you see parallels in that sort of way that Tiffany could maybe take that trajectory?
Yeah, I see a lot of parallels. Honestly, I see a lot of parallels between her and Alexa, and also in some ways her and Charlotte. Okay. Of just a freak athlete who's really good. But I think the thing that because I'm not the biggest Charlotte fan in the world.
Sure.
But the thing that Tiffany is really good at is connecting with an audience, whether she's as a heel.
Yep.
And getting that reaction, but also like making people respect her after the match is done because of how good she is. And that's the same way with Charlotte. Is babyface Charlotte is one of the worst characters out there.
Agreed.
Heel Charlotte is one of the best heels out there. She's really good. And then when the bell rings, no matter what she is, most of the time when she's into it, it's a really you're going to get a really, really good showing. And I think the same thing's kind of true with Tiffany. I can see a massive parallel between her and Alexa and her and Charlotte of as soon as they get to the main roster, they're going to get immediate success.
Yep.
And what that looks like, maybe, Tiffany's the one to beat Bayley if she wins at WrestleMania, or if she's the one to beat Rhea, or whatever the case is. I expect really, really big things from Tiffany within the next year or so.
Yeah, Tiffany definitely has a bright future on the roster. Very excited that, it was kind of a head scratcher that she seemingly was called up so quickly after not a whole lot of experience in NXT.
Yeah.
But she proved she belonged really, really quickly.
Yeah, I think she proved in NXT when she had that feud with Becky.
Yep.
And then, they killed it. And then, obviously, out of pretty quickly, she got called up after that. So I think they saw that and were like, okay, if you can hang with Becky, you're pretty much ready for the main roster.
Absolutely. Somebody else had an incredible showing in the women's chamber was Naomi.
Yeah.
Graves made an incredible comment talking about how Naomi went away from WWE and really found her own kind of style.
Yep.
Not that Naomi wasn't unique before, because she certainly was, but she had never been away from WWE. And she, all of her wrestling experience, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, was in WWE. Like, she didn't do independence.
Right.
Any of that. She learned the craft in WWE. Yep. So she went out, found her own way, came back, and it showed, man. I thought she had an incredible showing.
Yeah, she looked really good. She looked like she belonged. Which, not saying she didn't before. I mean, she won the world title at WrestleMania, I think.
She won it. Yeah, she won it before Mania. She had to relinquish it due to a knee injury, and then she won it back at 33.
Yeah, so
from Alexa Bliss.
Yeah. But she, not saying that she didn't belong beforehand.
Right.
But there's just something about, look at Drew McIntyre, look at Cody Rhodes, of leaving WWE as something and then coming back and being that main event star.
Yep.
And I think Naomi's fitting that category. I'm curious to see where they go from here.
I agree.
I think there's a lot of really interesting options they can go with for Naomi. But I'm excited to see what they do with her, because she has not missed a step since she returned.
Agreed. We talk a lot about production on this show, and because you and I see these things, and it's awesome. I loved, and they did this in the men's chamber match too, the cameras.
Yes.
Showing the cameras in the pod.
Yeah.
And I know it was CGI on the camera for us on TV to see it.
Yeah.
And they couldn't see it in the building.
Yeah.
But the way they showed those cameras during the match when they would do a crowd shot.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, especially when it came to Logan Paul.
Yes.
That was very, very interesting. And one thing I do love that they're doing this year too, when they were showing the overhead shot of the chamber and all the people in the pod, their 2K rating beside them as well. I thought that was really interesting too.
Yeah, they're incorporating that. We've seen on Raw and SmackDown as well as a way to help promote the game and stuff. So really interesting that they're doing that, because they didn't do that last year.
No.
So that's another technique, I guess, to sell the game. Becky versus Rhea, we know that's the result of winning the Elimination Chamber. Of course, spoiler alert, Rhea Ripley beat Nia Jax. We'll talk about that in just a second. But what are your thoughts, man, on Rhea, Becky, WrestleMania?
It's the match that had to happen.
Agreed.
For not necessarily for Becky, but for Rhea.
Yep.
Because she had that amazing match last year at WrestleMania against Charlotte.
Yep.
One of the best matches of the weekend. And then hasn't really done much with the title since.
Agreed.
But she, in a weird way, she hasn't really had to, because of how much everybody loves her, that she could just show up anytime and everybody's going to go crazy. She had the match with Zelina that was really good.
I forgot about that. Yep.
She had the match with... Actually, this is the part of the problem, is I can't even remember the time she's defended it other than Nia, Rhea. She defended it against Ivy Nile on Raw one time. I don't really remember any other time. So she needs like a big time opponent.
Sure, she does.
And who's better than big time Bex? There's your segue. But I think Rhea needs this more than Becky, and that's why right now I'm leaning towards Rhea beating Becky at WrestleMania and kind of in a dominant fashion.
I don't think it's going to be dominant because I think she's going to win. Yeah. I'm not leaning. I'm all the way on the other side already. Like to me, that's my lock of WrestleMania already. Yeah. And that will still be my lock all the way through. Yeah. Is that Rhea Ripley beats Becky Lynch. Why I don't think it's going to be dominant is because this is a passing of the torch moment. Yeah. I think they're going to build Becky as the underdog. Becky, in what world are we talking about Becky Lynch being an underdog? But against Rhea Ripley, she is. Yeah. But we're building Becky as the underdog for this match, and I think she has to put up a good showing in order for this passing of the torch thing to actually work. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't when I say dominant, I don't mean like Brock Lesnar versus John Cena at SummerSlam. No, I think she's going to look like an absolute killer when she gets done with this match. Absolutely. And again, I don't think this is going to do anything to Becky because Becky has already solidified herself at the very top of this division. Yep, agreed. But I think Rhea needs this to beat Charlotte at WrestleMania 39, go into WrestleMania 40, and beat Becky. Yep. She's put herself up there as this is her division now. I think it's such a bittersweet moment though for fans because Rhea is clearly the most over woman on the roster right now. Yeah. You can make the argument for Bianca Belair. Yeah. And you can make the argument for Bayley on this run towards WrestleMania. Right. But consistently, it's been Rhea Ripley for the last year or so. Absolutely. And then you put her up against who was not just the most over woman on the roster, but the biggest baby face of the company. The face of the company in 2019. Yeah. Nobody was bigger than Becky Lynch. Right. So for all of the fans who like Rhea, it's those fans that you're pulling over from the Becky Lynch camp. You know what I mean? So I think it's a bittersweet moment because I think fans are understanding it's a passing of the torch. Yeah. But they're sad to see it being passed from Becky. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not saying, and I don't think we're both saying that Becky is like going to retire after this match or anything like that. No. I don't think we're going to see her a lot more. Obviously, because she has a daughter who's like 2 years old now, wants to be more a part of that and everything. And maybe they have another kid. Who knows? Right. And that, I mean, they should. Like, power to them. They want to be a part of their... Rollins has talked about the same thing. Right. And so I think there's going to be a time next year. I don't know if we're going to get a lot of Becky and Seth next year. Sure. And I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways because that'll give your Rhea Ripley's and your Bianca's time to come in. But then we talked about Tiffany Stratton and we talked about Jade Cargill now hitting the roster and, even Io Sky and Kairi Sane and all those people that are coming in. This gives them the opportunity now to kind of take the mantle and run with it. Yep. Because I think after WrestleMania, we're going to be at the point where there's only one 4-horsewoman around. Yeah. And that's Bayley. Yep. And I think there's got to be somebody to come in and pick up the leftover or the pieces. And right now in the women's division, there's a lot of people that can come in and do that. You just got to push them the right way. And I think the passing of the torch starts with Rhea, and then we can tell the story of Rhea losing the title at some point and getting somebody else to that level with her. Yeah, I was about to say, who in the world is going to be next? Yeah. What's left for Rhea to do? Let's quickly talk about her match against Nia. You and I are both very vocal about how Nia's just not great. No. And I think on paper, it's a great opponent for Rhea. Mm-hmm. Then the bell had to ring. It was not good. No, it was not within good. The first minute, I was cringing. She went for the Hurricane Run, and Nia just kind of stumbled into the corner. I get that Nia was trying to not go off of her feet, but I think we could have picked a better opponent for Rhea in her home country. Yeah. I get that Nia is a big contender. Okay, we're watching Raw right now as we record. Mm. Shayna Baszler versus Rhea Ripley headlining that show could have been way more intriguing than Nia Jax. I think the thing that made this match what it is you had to get Rhea, you had to give somebody to Rhea who is going to be the bigger heel.
or going to be a massive heel. And there's nobody. I mean, in the women's division, the biggest heel right now probably is Nia.
Yeah.
Because you could throw Chelsea Green out there, but everybody loves Chelsea. Everybody loves this Chelsea character, so she's an ironic heel. She's not really a heel. Sure. Nia Jax is that. And so I get that. She's also, the toughest opponent for Rhea to face. I get why they did it. I thought Nia was actually better than she normally is in this match, which isn't saying a lot, to be honest. But there were a couple moments like the Samoan drop on the announce table where it did not budge at all, was rough. And then the leg drop through it, like all that stuff was great. There were just a lot of moments where it wasn't great. But Rhea did her part. Like Rhea did the best she could, and she got her moment in front of her family, in front of her friends, in front of her fans. Yep. And I think at the end of the day, that's all people are going to remember about that. Sure.
I agree. I feel bad for her because she hadn't performed in her home country in 7 years. And then she's put out there with Nia Jax. Like they could have built Shayna. And I use that example because they had incredible stuff in NXT. Yeah. Like they could have built her as a nasty heel. Maybe not the biggest heel, but bring back their NXT history and just build that as a big match.
Not going too far down a rabbit hole, but I thought they were going to do bigger things with Shayna after she beat Ronda.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden she beat Ronda and nothing happened.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing happened. So I agree. I think they could have built somebody up like Shayna. Obviously, I think Indy wrestled earlier in the night in the pre-show. You could have done Indy and Rhea. Yep. But that's two hometown heroes coming together, so that'd have been a little tricky. I think there was other options you probably could have done, but it accomplished what it needed to accomplish, and that's all that really mattered going into WrestleMania.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Oh no, I agree. I'm on your side on it. I'm the one being positive about WWE, which is
no, you're the one being positive about Nia Jax, which is
Rhea Ripley, not Nia Jax. I'm not taking up for Nia.
Okay.
I'm not.
Quickly, the Judgment Day retains over Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne. We sort of knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was a great match, but Andy, there was literally, I had never had a doubt.
No.
And the ones from bell to bell, who was going to win this match?
No, this was my lock of the night of who was going to win. It did its job. It was a lot of fun. Yep. It got Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate over, I think, with the crowd, which is really important right now as they're coming in. Yep. And I smile every time I see Pete Dunne because he's Pete Dunne again. So I'm happy with just seeing him on TV.
That's great. Yeah. And I enjoy Tyler Bate, man. I wish he and Trent Seven could have had a main roster run as Mustache Mountain. I thought that was a really unique tag team. Yeah. That did some really cool things, but happy to see Tyler Bate getting a shot on the main roster as well.
Yeah. And then the eventual Pete Dunne turn on Tyler Bate, and when they go at it, it's
going to be fun.
It's going to open a lot of people's eyes to what these two guys are actually all about. It's like it's the English version or the England version of Ciampa and Gargano.
I knew you were going to say that.
And it makes sense and it works and it's fun. So just go for it. Next year, I need WrestleMania to be Gargano versus Ciampa, Dunn versus Bate, Owens versus Zayn. I just need those three.
And Gunther versus Dragunov.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Forget Roman Rock. I need that for the main event next year because, good Lord, those two dudes kill each other when they get in the ring.
Oh, my goodness. Andy's dream card. Book it would be. Now. All right, let's move over to the Men's Elimination Chamber. Again, appreciate you guys listening. If this is your first time, thank you for doing that. Subscribe wherever you find your podcast. We would appreciate it. Men's Elimination Chamber, Drew McIntyre. We assumed he was going to win. He won. We already said it. We both liked the women's match more than the men's. It just felt slow at times. Yeah. You know what I mean? It just felt. I know Randy Orton's in the match. I get that, but I just feel like that it was slow at times, man.
Yeah, and I think that was done on purpose because a lot of it was focused on Randy's back.
True.
And like him selling the injury because he was selling it, buddy. Because there was a couple times I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell the line.
I've got it written in my notes. I said either Orton is really great at selling or he is really hurting with his back.
Yeah, they did a good job with it. He did a really good job with it. I think it was kind of slow on purpose in some ways, but it was still really entertaining the entire time. Very interesting to start off with who they did.
Yep.
Because it was LA Knight and Drew, wasn't it?
Yep.
Which was the main event on SmackDown the night before.
Yep.
So it was very interesting to do that. Kevin Owens was more than normal unhinged.
He was.
Which was perfect. I loved it.
Okay, I'll get to that in a second. You mentioned Kevin Owens. We talked last week on the podcast about how it seemed like I threw out the idea of a fatal four-way for the U.S. Championship at WrestleMania with Logan Paul, LA Knight, AJ Styles, and Kevin Owens. I think they could still happen, but it seems like they've inserted Randy Orton instead of Kevin Owens. A good spot for all of them. We discussed that. But let's say that is the case. Are you still okay with it? And what could we see for Kevin Owens now? Yeah. Or do they make it a fatal five-way?
I mean, I think they could make it a ladder match.
Add a sixth person, make it a six-man
person.
ladder match?
You could do Randy, Logan Paul, KO, AJ Styles, LA Knight, and Bronson Reed, or who's
Grayson
on SmackDown?
Waller.
Grayson Waller. I think you could throw him in there, and there's your six competitors for the U.S. Championship in a ladder match. We haven't seen a ladder match for one of the mid-card titles probably since WrestleMania 32.
We haven't seen a ladder match at WrestleMania since
33 when the Hardys returned.
No, technically we saw one
36.
in the Performance Center.
Yeah. But I think you could. I think you could make it a ladder match for the U.S. title and just get all of those guys on the card.
Yeah.
But honestly, I would rather see Logan versus Randy one-on-one.
Oh yeah, I definitely would rather see AJ versus LA Knight and Logan versus Randy as separate one-on-one matches.
And then I think you could just do Kevin Owens versus Grayson Waller.
Okay. Or do you somehow get Sami Zayn brought back over and do Kevin and Sami versus Theory and Waller? Yeah,
you could do that. Based off of where Raw went tonight, I think the direction for Sami Zayn is more through Gunther than anything else.
Yeah.
You could also do where Kevin Owens is kind of like the host of WrestleMania, and it's just kind of because unhinged Kevin Owens hosting WrestleMania, I think would be a lot of fun.
That's a good point.
But I don't really know what else you could do for Kevin Owens this year, which is wild because he main evented the last two WrestleManias, and now we're like, we don't know where Kevin Owens fits on this card. Yeah. And that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it really is. That's why I posed the question to you. I was hoping you would have a good answer. One person that I just wrote down as we were watching Raw and seeing some highlights from the Chamber, Bobby Lashley felt like a fish out of water in this match.
Yeah.
He really felt out of place.
He did.
In this match, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it's because normally you don't have two big guys in a chamber match.
Okay.
And maybe it was everybody knew Drew was going to be the guy in it, and so Bobby just kind of being there. The spear to Logan Paul through the pod was vicious.
Yeah, it was.
Absolutely vicious. I don't know. I think since Bobby's returned and he's done this whole thing with the Street Profits, he's had a hard time finding his footing.
I agree. And
part of that, I think, is because of Karrion Kross.
Okay.
And I love Karrion Kross. Everything I think it was Tom Campbell on Cultaholic said this on a video I was watching, and I completely agree. Karrion Kross has done everything right since he's returned, but nothing has worked.
It's so interesting because he was so dominant in NXT.
Yeah.
And whatever he did in NXT worked in NXT. It's just not translating.
I'll tell you what killed it. That Adam Cole promo. Where he said, you get the lights, you get the smoke, you got the entrance, you got the girl.
And then the bell rings.
But all they got to do for me to make me cool is ring the dang bell. And it's like, yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so they killed him. Like Adam Cole killed him in that moment.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else you could do for him.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Because like with the AOP, it should work.
Sure.
With Scarlett, it should work. With Paul Ellering, it should work.
Yeah. Maybe it's not going to.
Maybe it's not.
I don't know. They're probably.
He should go bald again. I think that's what it is.
I really think that's part of it. As dumb as that might sound, I think that's part of it.